Friends, fellow travelers on this winding road of ambition, let me ask you something that's been burning in my own soul for years. What if that nagging voice, the one that whispers quit when the chips are down, just vanished? Poof! Gone forever. What if this very struggle, the one tightening your chest right now, isn't a red stop sign, but a flashing arrow pointing to your breakthrough? You see, this country wasn't built by folks who backed down. From the frozen fields of Valley Forge to the dusty plains of the West, it was built by men and women who stared pain in the face and said, "Not today, that ache you feel? That isn't meant to shatter you. It's meant to build you." This moment, the grit in your teeth, the fatigue dragging at your bones, the shadow of doubt trying to creep into your heart, this isn't your exit ramp. This is your proving ground. This is where legends are born. Because listen to me, no oak tree grows tall and strong without weathering 1,000 storms. No empire, from Rome to the one we call home, was built on sunny days alone. And no mind, no spirit, has ever been forged into unbreakable steel without first walking through the searing heat of the fire. You tell me it's hard? Good. That means you're in the fight. That means it's working. I'm not here tonight to pat you on the back and tell you it's okay to walk away. I didn't come to whisper sweet nothings. I came to ignite that giant sleeping within you, that warrior spirit that's been buried under a mountain of I can'ts and maybes. I'm talking to the version of you that rolls up their sleeves, that gets the job done, that flat out refuses to crawl back into the suffocating comfort of mediocrity. Let the quitters quit. Let the fearful find their shadows. But you? Don't you dare. You've journeyed too far. You've weathered too many storms already. Everything you've ever bled for, prayed for, fought for, waits just on the other side of this pain. So you don't stop here. You don't break here. You build here. Now stand tall in your own mind. Let the quiet resolve in your heart roar louder than all the naysayers, all the doubts, all the noise of the world. This is your hour. Let's truly begin. When the going gets tough, you know what most folks do? They start looking for the nearest exit. They start spinning those old, tired lies to themselves. Maybe this dream wasn't for me. Maybe it's just not the right time. Maybe I've done all I can, but I want to talk to that part of you, deep down, that remembers who you were before the world tried to teach you how to retreat, how to play small. Pain isn't your enemy, it's your sparring partner. Pressure isn't a signal to stop, it's the weight on the bar that builds your strength. Resistance isn't a red light, it's the gatekeeper, the sacred threshold. Only a few, the builders, the doers, the pioneers, the ones who decide their own destiny, will ever have the guts to walk through it. And let me tell you, the person who walks out of that fire is never the same one who walked in. They're stronger, sharper, real. That's the sacred purpose of hardship, to strip away every illusion, every excuse, until all that's left is the undeniable truth of who you are. Until only the unbreakable core of you survives. I'll never forget something Andrew Carnegie, the steel titan, shared with me in spirit through his writings, a lesson that echoes from his humble beginnings as a Scottish immigrant boy working himself to the bone in a telegraph office. He said, "Adversity is the refining fire of destiny. It burns away the dross, leaving only the pure gold of the man ready to lead." Carnegie didn't parachute into success. He started with calloused hands and an unyielding hunger. Every penny earned, every long hour worked, he was watching, learning, preparing. So when his big chance came, the kind of chance that makes most men tremble, he didn't flinch. Why? Because the fire he'd already walked through those grueling days, the gnawing uncertainty, the meager pay had already forged his mind into a weapon. And here you are standing in your own fire. When I ask you, what will this fire leave behind? Will it be the ashes of a dream surrendered? Or will it reveal a man, a woman, so focused, so steady, so commanding, that the world itself has no choice but to bend to your will? Think of Charles M. Schwab, Carnegie's right-hand man. He faced the brutal storms of industry, the roar of cutthroat competition, the skepticism of men older, richer, more seasoned. He once told a story about marking a chalk line on the factory floor, when production was lagging. He didn't berate. He didn't threaten. He simply wrote the number of steel heats one shift had produced. The next shift saw it, and determined to beat it, erased his mark and wrote a higher one. That's leadership from the front. What set Schwab apart wasn't just raw genius. It was an ironclad resilience. He didn't fold. He moved. Swiftly. Decisively. When I studied his life, I imagined asking him how he dealt with fear. His actions screamed the answer. Fear is a fog, and a true leader learns to walk forward even when the path is shrouded in mist. You might not see your future with crystal clarity right now. You might be stumbling in the fog of fatigue, surrounded by the chilling whispers of doubt. But hear me loud and clear, you still walk. You still move. You still build. Because the person who waits for perfect clarity will wait forever. The one who says, I'll push when things get easier, will never reach the summit. Let's talk about Henry Ford. Here was a man whose vision for a horseless carriage for every family was ridiculed. Experts called it a foolish fancy, a rich man's toy that would never replace the reliable horse. Even his own engineers, the ones he paid to innovate, told him his idea for an affordable V8 engine was impossible. And you know what he told them, with that glint of unshakable resolve in his eye? Build it anyway. He didn't just say it once. He said it over and over, day after day, until their doubt shattered against the rock of his conviction, and they did. Ford understood a fundamental truth that escapes most. When everything seems to be pushing back against you, it's not always the world testing you. It's your own spirit asking, how badly do you really want this? And you answer that question not with words, but with relentless, unwavering persistence. With an identity so solid it deflects every blow. Ford didn't stop because it was hard. He became Henry Ford because it was hard, and he kept going anyway. You think the men and women who built this nation, who launched industries from their garages, who penned declarations that changed the world, who marched for justice when the odds were stacked against them, you think they did it cozied up in comfort? No! They did it exhausted. They did it misunderstood. They did it with a chorus of doubters in their ears, sometimes even from within their own hearts. But they moved. They acted. Because they had made a decision, a sacred vow to themselves, and they slammed the door shut on the very idea of retreat. Let me be crystal clear. If you're tired right now, good. It means you've been in the arena, wrestling with something that matters. If you're doubting yourself, good. It means you're stretching, pushing past the old boundaries of what you thought you could handle. If you're feeling the pressure, good. It means you're not playing small, you're aiming for something significant. But I will not stand by and let you quit. Because quitting now isn't just abandoning your goals. It's a betrayal of the magnificent person you are in the process of becoming, the one who keeps showing up, the one who listens to vision instead of fear, the one who would rather endure the sting of purposeful effort than drown in the lukewarm bath of mediocrity. Let the quitters find their excuses. Let the fearful scurry back to safety. But you don't get to quit. Because this fire you're in, it's not destroying you, it's making you. And when you rise from it, not if, but when the world won't say you were lucky or gifted or that someone saved you, they'll look at you with awe and know deep in their bones that you were forged. Keep going. Don't you dare quit. You must understand something now, perhaps more profoundly than ever before. The pain you're wrestling with today isn't a cosmic punishment. It's a process, a sacred rite of passage, a blast furnace that melts away the soft edges, the hesitations, the pretty illusions, and leaves only pure, unadulterated iron in its wake. And yet, what do most people do when they feel that searing heat? They bolt. They scramble for the familiar comfort of the known. They retreat to old habits, old limitations. But not you. You weren't put on this earth to run. You were built to withstand. You were built to build. And nothing, absolutely nothing, worth having has ever been built without a cost. Let's speak plainly, you and I. There will be days when it feels like the whole world is conspiring against you. When every voice around you, even the one in your own head, questions what in the Sam Hill you think you're doing. When even the smallest step forward feels like you're dragging a boulder uphill in quicksand. And on those days, believe me, the temptation to quit will sidle up to you, smooth and persuasive, whispering, maybe you should just pause. Catch your breath. Maybe slow down a bit. Maybe just quit. But those whispers? That's not your true voice. That's the siren song of drift, the ghost of your old identity trying to drag you back to the safety of the familiar, to the comfort of unfinished business, to the version of you that never quite saw things through. And you're done living like that. You must now find a voice within you that roars louder than those whispers. You must plant your feet and declare, no, I am not going anywhere. I might be tired. I might be stretched to my limit, but I am not broken. I will not fold. And I will not leave this chapter of my story unfinished. This, right here, is the crucible where your identity is reforged. Not in a moment of triumph with ticker-tape parades, but in the quiet, solitary choice to continue. The choice to keep carrying that weight even when your legs are screaming and your spirit is weary. The choice to not back down, not one damn inch. When Abraham Lincoln was trying to hold this fractured nation together during the Civil War, he wasn't greeted with daily applause. He was savaged from every side, mocked in the papers, slandered by his enemies, betrayed by those he trusted. His own cabinet questioned his resolve. The people, weary of bloodshed, doubted victory could ever come. The war dragged on, a relentless meat grinder of hope. And still he stood. Quiet. Focused. Unbending. He carried the crushing burden of a nation, not because he was some kind of superhuman without feeling, but because he had decided what must be done. He wasn't swayed by the noise of the critics or the fog of his own fatigue. He was anchored to purpose. Anchored. You need to be anchored like that, anchored to your mission, anchored to the vision of your future self, anchored to the man or woman you swore you would become. There will be no cheering crowds for this private decision, no audience watching your lonely struggle, no instant reward, just silence, and pain, and the slow, grinding work of progress. But make no mistake, every single day you choose to push through this storm, you are building a life, a character that no storm can ever shake. This is where you earn your crown. Not when it's easy. Not when you're feeling on top of the world. But right now. When it's hard. When it's heavy. When every fiber of your being is screaming at you to stop, and you dig deep and whisper back, not yet. The person who continues when every instinct says quit, that person becomes undeniable. And here's a secret the world doesn't like to advertise. Most people throw in the towel just inches from the gold. Just moments before the breakthrough that would have changed everything. They were one tough conversation away, one more sales call away, one more manuscript revision away, one more rep in the gym, one more sunrise met with discipline. And they let it all slip away because the going got hard. Let this burn into your mind like a brand. You are not most people. You are not average. You do not operate on fleeting feelings or the path of least resistance. You follow purpose. You follow a vision. You follow a code etched into your very soul with words like relentless, resilient, and yes, sometimes ruthless in your dedication. And that sacred code? It does not include the word quit. When Thomas Edison was wrestling with the challenge of the electric light, he didn't just fail a few times. He failed thousands of times. He watched his precious materials literally explode in his face. He endured the mockery of so-called experts who called him a fool. He saw his own team begin to doubt the mission. But do you know what he never ever did? He never doubted the result. He had already decided with absolute certainty what the end would look like. And so every failure wasn't a defeat. It was simply another step forward, another confirmation of what didn't work, bringing him closer to what would. That is precisely how you must view this moment in your life. This isn't a defeat. This isn't an insurmountable wall. It is a passage, a trial by fire. And you are walking through it head held high, eyes fixed on the horizon, your heart filled not with fear, but with unwavering decision. You do not stop when it's hard. You become harder. You do not retreat from resistance. You rise through it. You do not ask, will I make it? You declare, with every ounce of your being, watch me build this until there's not a shred of doubt left in this world, or in my own mind, and if no one claps, you keep going. If no one sees the sweat and the sacrifice, you keep going. If no one believes in you, then you believe. You execute. You finish. Because the fire you are in right now, however intense, is temporary. But the strength it will forge within you, the character it will build, that, my friend, will last forever. Keep going. Don't you dare quit. There will come a day, I promise you, when all this pressure, this grinding pain, this bone-deep fatigue, this sometimes crushing loneliness, it will all make perfect sense. A day when the weight you carried with gritted teeth becomes the undeniable strength you were, like a badge of honor. When the silence you endured in the lonely hours of work becomes a profound stillness in your soul. When the seeds you planted in the dark, watered with sweat and tears, burst forth into a light that others will follow. But that day, that glorious day, only comes to the man or woman who refuses to lay down their arms. It doesn't come to the clever, or the entitled, or the ones who wish upon a star. It comes to the one who kept going when there was no visible reward, who built when no one else believed, who didn't ask, how long will this agonizing journey take? But simply stated, with quiet resolve, as long as it takes. Let us speak again of Andrew Carnegie, a man whose life story I've studied more than perhaps any other. When he first set foot on American soil, he was a penniless immigrant boy from Scotland, with nothing to his name but a fierce, burning hunger. A hunger for knowledge. A hunger for opportunity. A hunger for greatness. He started at the very bottom, a messenger boy in a bustling telegraph office. Do you imagine for 1 second his path to the pinnacle of industry was paved with rose petals and gentle breezes? Absolutely not. He worked grueling hours that would make most people today weep. He sacrificed comfort, foregoing pleasures that others took for granted. He was overlooked, underpaid, and undoubtedly doubted by many who saw only a poor immigrant lad. But he continued. With every job he took, he gave more than was asked, learned more than was taught. Every obstacle he faced, he didn't curse it. He used it as a stepping stone, as training for the bigger battles ahead. He endured the relentless strain because he carried within him a vision far grander than his present, often bleak, conditions. And through that relentless forward motion, through sacrifices made without applause, in the quiet dignity of unyielding effort, he built an empire of steel that changed the face of this nation and became the wealthiest man of his time. But more than his staggering fortune, it's his example that thunders down through the ages. He showed us undeniably that greatness isn't something you're born with. It is built, and it is built in the silence of solitary effort, in the sweat of honest labor, in the crucible of hard decisions, in the unwavering perseverance when lesser souls would have crumbled into dust. That same resilient blood, that same potential for inner fire, runs through your veins. That same capacity for unshakable resolve exists within your mind, waiting to be fully unleashed. You are not just here to get by, to survive. You are here to build, to create, to lead, to leave your mark on this world. And the only way to fulfill that sacred calling is to keep walking. Especially when your legs tremble and your spirit flags, because that is precisely the point where most men and women falter and quit. They confuse pressure with punishment. They misinterpret discomfort as a sign of failure. They foolishly believe that hard means wrong, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could be further from the truth. Hard means you're being forged. Hard means you finally left the shallow waters of your old self behind. Hard means you're deep in the climb, on the treacherous slopes of the mountain, and the peak, my friend, is far closer than you currently dare to believe. Let me remind you once more of Charles M. Schwab, who rose from a humble stake driver in the steel mills to become the president of U.S. Steel, handpicked by Carnegie himself. Schwab wasn't always the most brilliant mind in every room, but he possessed one trait that made him utterly invaluable, a trait that set him apart from legions of more cautious men. He never stopped producing. He never stopped moving. When others were paralyzed by doubt, endlessly analyzing, waiting for the mythical perfect plan or perfect conditions, Schwab acted. He led from the front. And in times of chaos, when others saw only crisis, he saw opportunity and built. That's what makes a person irreplaceable. That's what carves a name into the enduring stone of history. Not how clever they were, not how smooth their path, but how they carried the burden, how they faced the storm, without breaking. And you too will become that kind of person if you refuse, absolutely refuse, to let pressure become an excuse for inaction. Let me tell you now, with every fiber of certainty in my being, that this storm will pass. This challenging chapter will eventually close. This heavy weight will one day lift. But when it does, the real question, the one that will define your legacy, will be this: who did you become because of it? Did you fold like a cheap suit? Did you wait for someone else to rescue you? Did you whimper and whine and wish for easier days? Or did you rise? Did you dig deep and decide that this very trial would be the moment that made you unshakable, unbreakable, undeniable? Say this with me now, and say it like a solemn vow from the deepest part of your soul. I do not shrink under pressure. I am shaped by it. I do not run from pain. I rise through it. When the going gets hard, I go harder. These are not just words, my friend. These are your weapons, your armor, your declaration of independence from mediocrity. Use them. Wield them in the quiet of the morning when the weight of the day threatens to return. Brandish them at night when doubt, like a thief, tries to creep into your mind. Unleash them when that old, familiar voice whispers, "This is too much for you," because that voice is not your future. It is your past desperately begging you to come back to a smaller, less capable version of yourself. But you've already left that person behind. You're on a new path now. And what stands ahead, if you only stay the course, is a life so solid, so grounded in real strength, so profoundly unbreakable, that even fear itself will learn to hesitate before daring to knock on your door again. Keep walking. Don't you dare slow down. Don't you dare second-guess the power that's growing within you. And whatever you do, don't you dare quit. Not now. Not ever. There comes a point on the path of every true builder, every pioneer, every soul striving for something more, when the world around them seems to go eerily quiet. The initial applause fades, the quick wins dry up. The progress you once measured in leaps and bounds slows to a painful, grinding crawl. And in that deafening silence, a single question echoes so loudly it threatens to drown out everything else. Is this still worth it? This, my friends, is the great separator. This is the test that distinguishes the dabblers from the dominators, the wishers from the warriors. Because almost everyone begins with a spark of fire, a bold goal shouted to the heavens. But only a precious few continue to fan that flame when the tangible results disappear and the struggle relentlessly multiplies. It is here in this often dark, lonely middle passage, in those dry, desert days when momentum seems like a forgotten dream, that you are either forged into something magnificent or you fade into forgotten mediocrity. Let me tell you something few will say with such brutal honesty. The pain you're feeling right now, that gnawing ache of effort and uncertainty, is not a signal to quit. It is the unmistakable sign that you are finally in the sacred process of becoming. Not the version of you that excitedly begins things, full of hope and naive enthusiasm. No! You are becoming the version of you that finishes them. Not the person who makes eloquent plans, but the person who executes relentlessly right through the heart of resistance. When Thomas Edison was deep in the trenches, wrestling with the monumental challenge of creating a practical electric light, he had already faced a staggering tally of over 5,000 supposed failures. The money was dwindling. The newspapers and so-called experts mocked him relentlessly. His own loyal workers, weary and disheartened, began to question whether the idea itself was even viable. But Edison, that titan of tenacity, he refused to abandon his vision simply because the desired results hadn't yet materialized. Instead, he made those results inevitable by the sheer, unyielding force of his refusal to stop. When a young, perhaps skeptical, reporter asked him if he ever felt like giving up after so many setbacks, Edison, with a calm that must have baffled the man, reportedly said, "Young man, I have not failed. I've just found 5,000 ways that won't work." Now, truly understand the depth of that statement. He had already decided the outcome in his mind. He didn't need to see the light bulb glow to believe in it. He chose to believe, and therefore, the glowing bulb was simply a matter of time and tenacious effort. That is what men and women of destiny do. They commit so profoundly, so irrevocably to their vision that reality itself seems to have no choice but to eventually bend and align with their will. And I tell you now, with every conviction I possess, you must do the same. Stop questioning whether you're on the right path just because it hurts, just because it's demanding more of you than you initially anticipated. The right path, the path to genuine growth and significant achievement, almost always hurts the most at first. It has to. It's designed to cut away your accumulated weakness, to expose your hidden doubts, to drag every flimsy excuse out into the harsh light of day and dare you to keep going anyway. Henry Ford wasn't celebrated with parades when he first declared his intention to create an affordable automobile for the common American family. He was largely laughed at, attacked by established interests, dismissed as a dreamer chasing an impossibility. Even his most trusted engineers, the men he relied upon for technical expertise, told him that his grand project, particularly the revolutionary V8 engine, was simply impossible to achieve. But Ford, he wasn't seeking their approval or permission. He could already see the assembly lines humming in his mind's eye. He could already feel the steering wheel of his creation in the hands of millions. And so, when they told him, with all their expert authority, that it couldn't be done, he didn't argue or debate. He told them simply, with unshakable certainty, build it anyway. That, my friends, is power. That is clarity. And that is the unwavering standard to which you must now hold yourself. This very moment you're in this intense pressure, this nagging doubt, this weariness is the gateway to everything you ever said you wanted. But most people, tragically, never pass through it. They turn back at the threshold. They tell themselves soothing lies, like I'll try again when things are easier, or it's just not the right time, or, the most insidious one of all, maybe this just isn't meant for me. No. It is meant for you, but only if you find the courage and the grit to finish what you started. Because dreams, grand and glorious dreams, do not belong to the person who merely plans them or wishes for them. They belong to the person who suffers for them, who builds them brick by painstaking brick when it's tedious and boring, who walks resolutely through the storm when every instinct and every howling wind screams at them to turn back. Let me share a piece of wisdom I gleaned from studying the life of Charles M. Schwab, one of the most formidable executives of the American industrial age. He once remarked, in essence, the men who run when things get hard don't realize they were often just 10 feet from striking gold, and it's profoundly true. I've seen it happen, metaphorically speaking, again and again in business, in art, in life. People who were one crucial decision away, one more day of persistence away, one final act of unwavering discipline away from the breakthrough that would have changed their entire existence, they quit. And it wasn't because they lacked ability or talent. It was because they lacked endurance. They lacked the simple, stubborn refusal to give up. So I say to you now, with all the earnestness I can muster, endure. Endure the silence when no one is cheering. Endure the pressure when it feels crushing. Endure the unseen hours of relentless work. Because those who continue when it's painfully hard are the only ones who truly deserve the reward when it finally, inevitably, arrives. Repeat after me and say it not as a platitude but as a creed, a bedrock principle of your new life. I do not pause when it gets hard. I lean in. I do not seek escape. I seek mastery. Pain is not a reason to quit. It is profound proof that I am being rebuilt. Let these words take root in your chest. Let them become the anchor that holds you fast when the path grows cold and desolate. Let them become your internal rhythm as steady, powerful drumbeat that fear itself cannot disrupt or silence. Because the man or woman who keeps walking even when the light of guidance disappears, even when the applause of encouragement dies down to nothing, even when no one else on earth seems to believe that person does not just survive the storm. They become the storm. They become a force of nature. There is a secret the world rarely speaks aloud, a profound truth known intimately only to the few who have stood on the very precipice of collapse, stared into the abyss of despair, and somehow, someway, found the will to keep moving forward. Your greatest, most awe-inspiring strength will always be revealed not when you're feeling motivated, not when you're riding a wave of easy wins, but precisely when you feel you have no strength left. When you're utterly exhausted, feeling profoundly alone, questioning every decision you've ever made. It is in those gut-wrenching moments, when most people fold and surrender, that the man or woman of true destiny is shaped, tempered, and ultimately revealed. You see, when the going gets brutally hard, your old, comfortable identity begins to die. The identity that constantly sought ease, that craved quick, effortless results, that needed a steady stream of praise and external validation to keep going. That weaker version of you simply cannot survive the intense, sustained pressure of a worthy pursuit. And that, believe it or not, is a profound gift. Because pressure doesn't just break people, it purifies them. It burns away the superficial, the hesitant, the fearful, leaving behind only the resilient, unshakable core of your true potential. Let me call to mind the story of Abraham Lincoln once more. When Lincoln took the oath of office and entered the White House, this nation was already splintering at the seams. States were seceding, declaring their intent to dissolve the Union. The dark clouds of civil war were gathering, promising unimaginable bloodshed. His closest advisors wavered, offering conflicting and often timid counsel. Public confidence was at a historical low, and the crushing weight of a divided, warring nation sat squarely, mercilessly on his weary shoulders. But Lincoln didn't waver. He didn't desperately search for easier answers or try to defer the awesome responsibility that was his. He sat with the unbearable pressure. He carried the agonizing burden, and through that relentless, soul-testing endurance, he, more than any other single individual, gave America its spine back, preserving the Union for generations to come. He didn't become a giant of history because his path was easy. He became one because he kept showing up, day after agonizing day, when most mortals would have collapsed under the strain. That's the kind of unyielding spirit you must cultivate within yourself now. You're not in this fight, whatever your personal battle may be, for a convenient, comfortable victory. You're in this to evolve, to shed every soft, fearful, and compromising part of you, and to emerge as a man or woman who leads their own mind with an iron will, commands their emotions with unwavering discipline, and moves through life with an unshakable sense of direction and purpose. Let me say this again, and let it sink deep into your consciousness. The going gets hard not to stop you, but to stretch you, to expand your capacity. You want courage? Real courage isn't the absence of fear. It's built when your hands are shaking, your heart is pounding, and you move forward anyway. You want discipline? True discipline isn't forged on easy days. It's hammered out when your body screams for rest, when comfort calls your name, and your mind, your will says, just one more step, one more round. You want unshakable belief in yourself? That kind of profound self-trust isn't a gift. It is painstakingly grown by continuing to act, to strive, to build, even on those dark days when your own thoughts try to betray you with whispers of doubt and inadequacy. Andrew Carnegie, the industrial titan whose wisdom on wealth and willpower profoundly shaped my own understanding, once shared a truth that has stayed with me for decades. No man becomes truly powerful until he no longer requires things to be easy. He meant this with every fiber of his being. He didn't seek the path of least resistance. He deliberately chose the path that demanded his entire being, his full measure of devotion, because he knew, with absolute certainty, that it was there, and only there, in the crucible of challenge, that his true greatness would be forced to rise. He told me, in essence, that the mountain of your ambition does not shrink. You grow stronger to meet its demands. And you, my friend, right now in this very struggle are growing stronger. Even if you can't feel it yet. Even if all you feel is the strain. So, let us make this intensely practical. When the going gets hard, and it absolutely will, again and again, here is precisely what you do. You do not retreat. Not 1 inch. Instead, you take one small, concrete action. Even if it's imperfect. Even if it feels insignificant. Even if it's invisible to the rest of the world. Action, not fleeting motivation, is your lifeline in the storm. You return to your aim. You pull out that statement of your definite purpose, the one you wrote with such conviction, and you read it aloud. You reconnect with the deep why of your mission. Fear and doubt multiply like weeds in the minds of those who forget why they started this arduous journey in the first place. You eliminate the noise. Stop explaining your fatigue or your struggles to anyone who isn't in the arena with you. Don't seek comfort or validation from people who've never built anything of significance, who've never dared to risk failure for a worthy dream. Sit in silence if necessary, and remember who you are committed to becoming. You rehearse your power. Repeat it to yourself, with conviction, I was made for this. Say it not because you feel strong in that moment, but because you decide to be strong. And then, with that renewed resolve, you continue. You continue when no one is watching. You continue when the initial applause has long since faded. You continue when fear whispers its insidious lies. Maybe this isn't worth all this pain. Maybe you should just give up, because your unwavering consistency in the face of pain, in the grip of pressure, in the loneliness of silence, that is the irrefutable evidence that you are becoming a man or woman this world, and your own doubts, simply cannot break. So let me leave you with this, a final charge to carry into the battles ahead. Say it out loud with me now, with force, with fire, with absolutely no hesitation. I am not done. I am not finished. I do not quit. I rise, because the person who becomes truly unstoppable is not the one who starts the race fast and flashy. It is the one who refuses to stop, no matter how arduous the path becomes, no matter how slow the progress feels. And that person, my friend, that indomitable, unconquerable person is you. There will come a moment in every determined person's journey, a quiet, almost invisible inflection point, when the sheer, grinding pain of the effort becomes louder, more insistent than the tangible signs of progress. When the magnificent goal you once shouted from the rooftops with unwavering certainty now feels like a faint, fragile whisper, almost lost beneath the crushing weight of the struggle. That moment, my friend, is not a cosmic signal to stop. It is a profound indication that you are nearing a sacred threshold, the very point where most people, sadly, turn back, and where the dedicated few, the true builders, press relentlessly forward. Let me be absolutely clear. Pain, in the context of a worthy pursuit, is not your enemy. Your true enemy is insidious, seductive comfort, the siren song that whispers for you to settle, to ease up on the throttle, to just coast for a while. Comfort is the silent, smiling killer of greatness, because it doesn't arrive like a raging storm demanding your attention. It shows up like a warm, inviting bed on a cold, dark morning, and it subtly, expertly, convinces you to stay there, to abandon your ambitions, perhaps forever. Charles M. Schwab, one of the most formidable steel magnates this country has ever produced, understood this truth with a deadly, practical clarity. Schwab, who rose under the tutelage of Andrew Carnegie, wasn't always the most naturally skilled or intellectually gifted man in every room. But he possessed an inner fire, an almost terrifying capacity to endure it, even thrive under the kind of pressure that made most other men wilt and seek escape. When production quotas weren't being met, when tensions and frustrations rose high within the ranks of the steel mills, Schwab didn't hide behind lengthy reports or delay decisive action. He didn't play politics. He walked directly into the metaphorical furnace of the problem, into the heat of the conflict, and he stayed there, unflinching, until a workable solution was forged. Why? Because he wasn't seeking comfort. He was relentlessly seeking growth, improvement, solutions. And he understood deep in his bones that genuine growth and lasting comfort are mortal enemies. They cannot coexist for long in the heart of an ambitious individual. That right there is the crucial lesson for you today. Pain in this context is not punishment. It is preparation. It is a clear sign that you are no longer operating on the level of the person you used to be. You are stepping into something higher, something more demanding, something that requires more of you. And the very muscles of your mind, your will, and your character are, in this moment, breaking down and reforming, growing stronger, more resilient under the intense strain. That's not failure, my friend. That is formation. That is the alchemy of becoming. And here's the critical insight that the average person consistently misses. When the pain of effort increases, they instinctively slow down. They begin to rationalize quitting. They tell themselves stories like, maybe this just isn't meant to be, or perhaps I'm not cut out for this. But the very, very few who rise to extraordinary heights, they do the opposite. They take increasing pain and difficulty as confirmation that their growth has truly begun, that they are on the cusp of a breakthrough. Let me bring Thomas Edison back into our conversation. Edison wasn't born into some rarefied atmosphere of effortless brilliance. He wasn't, by many accounts, the most naturally gifted or intuitive thinker of his era. But he possessed something incredibly rare, something more valuable than raw intellect alone, an almost superhuman tolerance for discomfort, for failure, for the tedious, grinding work of iteration. 10,000 times, let that number sink in. 10,000 times, he reportedly failed in his quest to produce a commercially viable, long-lasting electric light bulb. Not 10 times, not 100. 10,000. Now, just try to imagine that. Imagine the staggering mental pressure, the immense financial stress as funds dwindled, the public ridicule from skeptics and the press, the insidious internal doubt that must have gnawed at him in the lonely hours of the night. And still, he moved forward. When asked by a reporter, astounded by his persistence, why he didn't simply give up after so many setbacks, he uttered those immortal words that the weak-minded could never truly comprehend: I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Now, pause for a moment. Reflect deeply on the power embedded in that statement. Do you understand the sheer, unyielding strength behind those words? That is not just a clever turn of phrase. It is a testament to a profound discipline of emotional command. Now, let me speak directly to you, to the warrior spirit within you. There will be days, many of them perhaps, when you simply don't want to continue. When your body aches with fatigue, when your heart feels heavy with discouragement, when the outcome you desire remains stubbornly unclear, and your mind is a chaotic storm of doubt and fear. And on those very days, you absolutely must act anyway. Because the man or woman you are in the process of becoming, the real, powerful, resilient you, is not determined by how you feel in any given moment. That true self is revealed, is forged, by how you respond when your emotions are screaming at you to retreat, to surrender, to find an easier path. Emotional control, true emotional mastery, is not about pretending you don't feel pain or fear. It is not about suppressing your legitimate emotions. It is about overriding them with a higher purpose. It is about consciously choosing to be the captain of your own ship, especially when the seas of life are wild and stormy. Henry Ford was certainly no stranger to emotional storms. He was relentlessly criticized by newspapers, often betrayed by partners and associates, and widely doubted by the masses who couldn't grasp his revolutionary vision. Yet he continued to build, to innovate, to push forward, because he had meticulously trained himself to act with an almost mechanical consistency, regardless of his internal state. Whether the day was easy and filled with progress, or brutal and fraught with setbacks, Ford moved forward. That unwavering consistency, that disciplined action in the face of emotional turmoil, became his decisive edge. So how do you build this kind of indispensable emotional control? Let me teach you the discipline, the practical steps. First, name the emotion. but do not obey it. When the chilling grip of fear rises within you, acknowledge it calmly. This is fear. When the hot flush of anger or frustration comes, observe it. This is anger, but then, you must immediately follow that acknowledgement with a command. I do not obey this feeling. I act based on my commitments, not my current emotional state. I act anyway. Why is this so powerful? Because naming the emotion creates a space between you and the feeling. It removes the illusion that you are the emotion. You are not. You are the observer, the chooser. And the observer always has the power to choose a different response. Second, anchor yourself to your identity, not to your mood. Your core identity, the vision of the person you are committed to becoming, must be far more powerful, far more compelling, than how you happen to feel in any single, fleeting moment. You must rehearse this fundamental truth every single day. I am the man, woman who moves forward, no matter what. I am the person who honors my commitments, regardless of discomfort. Say it aloud. Say it often. Let your subconscious mind hear it, absorb it, until it becomes your default operating system. Because if your identity is inextricably tied to consistent, purposeful action, not to the pursuit of comfort, your actions will inevitably rise above your transient emotional states. Third, create personal rituals that actively summon your power. The greatest men and women I've studied throughout history did not passively wait to feel powerful or motivated. They had established non-negotiable rituals to deliberately summon that state. Andrew Carnegie, for instance, meditated daily on his definite chief aim, reinforcing his purpose. Charles Schwab would reportedly begin each morning by reviewing his mission and priorities, not by immersing himself in the distracting news or idle gossip of the day. You must do the same. Create your own personal power anchors. It might be a specific set of affirmations spoken with conviction, an invigorating cold shower, a brisk walk in nature or silence, a powerful declaration made to your reflection in the mirror. Whatever it is, repeat it daily, consistently, because disciplined repetition creates profound emotional stability and strength. Fourth, expect resistance and actively welcome it. The master builder does not curse the hammer for being heavy. He trains with it until it feels like an extension of his own arm. So, when challenging emotions inevitably come the fear, the doubt, the fatigue, the frustration, do not be shocked or dismayed. Welcome them almost like an old, familiar rival. Smile inwardly and say, you've come again. Good. Let's dance, and then, with that attitude of empowered acceptance, you act. You move. You take the next indicated step anyway. Let me remind you once more what Abraham Lincoln carried upon his shoulders, the very fate of a bitterly divided nation, the crushing burden of a horrific civil war, the relentless, often vicious, screams of public criticism from all sides. And yet he endured. He wrote. He led. He strategized. He did not allow his profound private pain and exhaustion to translate into public paralysis or indecision. That is emotional control at its highest level. It is not about being numb or unfeeling. It is about being so profoundly aligned with your deepest purpose, so anchored to your mission, that the turbulent emotions of the moment, however intense, simply cannot detour you from your chosen path. Say this with me now and let it resonate in the very marrow of your bones. I am not my feelings. I am my decisions. I do not obey fleeting emotion. I obey my enduring mission. I feel fear. I feel doubt. I feel weariness. But I move forward anyway because I, and I alone, lead my state. These are not mere affirmations designed to soothe you. These are commands. You speak them not to passively comfort yourself, but to actively restructure your inner world, to re-engineer your responses. Because every single time you choose to act with power and purpose while feeling weak or fearful, you build a spine made of pure, unadulterated steel. And over time, through consistent application of this discipline, the fear that once ruled you becomes a mere whisper. The doubt that once stalled your progress becomes irrelevant noise. The hesitation that once kept you frozen in place becomes an impulse that is almost impossible for you to access, because your reinforced identity no longer allows it. This, my dear friend, is the profound and empowering fruit of true emotional control. You do not wait for peace to arrive before you move. You bring peace with your purposeful movement. You do not desperately seek calm amidst the storm. You embody calm in the storm. And when the going gets unimaginably hard, when the weight feels unbearable, you do not collapse. You rise. You act. And the world, eventually, inevitably, adjusts to your unwavering resolve. Let us now move forward with renewed determination into the next and final part of this message, where we plant the flag of unwavering finality in our minds and declare an all-out war on the very idea of retreat itself. We will bring together everything we have learned, every principle we have discussed, and we will commit, here and now, to finish what we started, to see our worthy ambitions through to their glorious conclusion. Are you ready? Then let us now speak the final word, not to conclude our journey, but to begin it anew, with more certainty, more power, more unquenchable fire than you have ever known before. Because this is not merely the end of a speech. This is the birth of a new you, a more powerful, resilient, and determined version of yourself. And that profound birth, that lasting transformation, does not happen with a single, fleeting decision. It happens and is sustained through deliberate, consistent repetition. You must hear these words of power again and again. You must speak these truths of resilience to yourself repeatedly. You must return to this core message not just once, not twice, but daily, consistently, until the version of you who used to hesitate, who used to fold under pressure, who used to shrink from challenge, is no longer alive within you. Because the deep transformation you truly desire is not a momentary spark of inspiration. It is a steady, unwavering rhythm. It is the daily, deliberate, unrelenting reinforcement of your chosen identity until that identity becomes absolutely, unshakably, unquestionably who you are. You do not listen to this once and magically change. You install it into your subconscious mind through repetition. You do not treat this as mere inspiration to be enjoyed and forgotten. You treat it as direct instruction, as a blueprint for your becoming. You do not passively wait for this message of strength to somehow return to you when you feel weak. You actively, purposefully return to it. That is the profound secret that the greatest men and women I have ever studied understood at the deepest level of their being. Andrew Carnegie did not become a titan of industry and a philanthropist of immense vision through a single conversation or a sudden flash of insight. He returned to his core beliefs, his definite chief aim, every single day. He repeated his purpose to himself. He fed his mind with the same empowering truths again and again and again, until there was simply no more room left within him for contradiction or doubt. He did not meditate on his goals once and hope for the best. He meditated in his own way, forever. Henry Ford, too, knew this immutable law of mind. When he famously said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right," he wasn't being merely poetic or clever. He was being deadly precise. He was describing the fundamental science of belief, which is built and solidified by repetition. He installed the thought of inevitable success so deeply, so consistently, into his own mind that the counterthoughts of doubt and failure simply had no oxygen, no fertile ground in which to live and grow. You must do the same. This speech, these principles, are not just a message to be consumed. They are a mirror you must return to again and again, until the powerful, resilient reflection you see eventually becomes the undeniable reality of who you are. You must rise every morning and, if necessary, hear these words again. You must walk with this spirit of tenacity in your heart when the day feels heavy and overwhelming. You must close your eyes at night and mentally rehearse the lines, the commitments that call you to rise above the fleeting sensations of fear, the dragging weight of fatigue, the shifting, unreliable moods of the moment. Because every single time you repeat this message, every time you consciously reaffirm these principles, you drive them deeper into your being. You dig a new, wider, deeper trench in the landscape of your subconscious mind. And that trench, over time, becomes the dominant pathway your thoughts automatically begin to walk. Let me be absolutely, unequivocally clear. The person who listens once is merely entertained. The person who listens 10 times might be temporarily inspired. But the person who listens daily, who speaks these words of power with genuine feeling and conviction, who integrates these truths into their very being, that person becomes profoundly, permanently transformed. This is the immutable law of autosuggestion. This is the undeniable science of identity formation. You must burn these truths into the very fabric of your soul. Say this with me now, with all the conviction you can summon. I will not forget who I am becoming. I do not allow fear or doubt to rewrite my internal programming. I repeat thoughts of power, words of strength, visions of success until power, strength, and success become my natural, default state, because the truth, my friend, is refreshingly simple. You are not inherently weak. You are not fundamentally broken. You are perhaps simply untrained in the art of mental and emotional mastery. And that essential training begins and is sustained with relentless, purposeful repetition. Every man and woman who achieved lasting greatness, Edison, Carnegie, Ford, Schwab, Lincoln, and countless others, known and unknown, they all knew and applied the same timeless secret. If you repeat a belief with focused emotion, with unwavering conviction, long enough and consistently enough, it will eventually replace every limiting thought, every self-sabotaging pattern. So I say this to you now, with all the force and finality I can command. Do not leave this message behind you like a forgotten relic. Do not casually move on to the next shiny object, the next fleeting piece of advice. Do not treat this speech as just another temporary dose of motivation that will wear off by tomorrow morning. This, if you choose it, is your new discipline, your new way of life. Now your work truly begins. You wake up. You play this message, or you recall its core principles. You walk alone if you must, and you repeat its words of power until they become your own. You feel doubt, that old familiar enemy, creeping in? You override it instantly, decisively, with these lines of strength and resolve. Because repetition is not boring. It is the master craftsman's chisel that shapes the raw stone of your potential into a masterpiece of resilience. And if you truly, deeply desire to be forged, to be unshakable, immovable, undeniable, then you must hammer these truths into your spirit daily, without fail, without excuse. You will forget at times. You will drift. That is human nature. But if you repeat, if you consistently return, if you faithfully recommit to these empowering truths again and again, eventually, inevitably, you will wake up one morning. And the person who used to fear the world, who used to shrink from challenge, that person will simply be gone, and in their place will stand a man or woman who moves with a quiet, profound confidence, a person who walks through resistance like wind through an open door, a person who no longer hopes for strength because strength has become their ingrained, default way of being. Repeat. That is the final, most crucial instruction. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel like it. Now. Today. Repeat until doubt cannot find your name in its address book. Repeat until hesitation cannot enter your posture or your thoughts. Repeat until your voice carries the undeniable weight of your true identity, not the strain of mere effort. Repeat until your purposeful actions no longer require the fickle fuel of motivation, but flow naturally from your disciplined character. Repeat until discipline itself becomes as natural and essential to you as breathing. And when the going gets truly, terrifyingly hard, as it surely will, you will not collapse. You will not cry out for help from a place of weakness. You will not retreat into the shadows of your past. You will stand firm, not because you feel like it in that moment, but because you have trained for it day after painstaking day. And when that moment of supreme trial comes, when you face the crucible that will define you, you will not desperately say, "I don't know what to do." Instead, you will hear these words, these principles, this fire, this unyielding standard, echoing in the deepest chambers of your soul. And you will move. You will act. You will conquer. Because relentless repetition built you for this very moment. So say it one last time with the full, resonant power of your authentic voice. I do not need to feel ready. I repeat readiness until it becomes me. I do not search for strength outside myself. I speak it, I live it, I become it. I do not listen to this truth once. I live this daily. This is your final word for today, but it is also your new beginning, your new rhythm, your profound rebirth. Now, if you are truly committed, return to the start and begin again. Let it repeat. Let it transform. Let it build the unstoppable force that you were always meant to be. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. If these words resonated with you, if they sparked a fire or strengthened your resolve, please consider liking this message, leaving a comment with your own commitments, or subscribing to this channel for more content designed to help you unlock your greatest potential. Your engagement helps spread this crucial message to others who may need to hear it. Now go forth and build.